Hey everyone. Lights down, phones face down. Deep breath in. Tonight, we're not diving into explosions or battlefield heroics. We're gliding, slowly, through a gallery of moments that history books never quite framed. These are the quiet photos, the tired ones, the ones that never made it to your high school history slideshows because, well, they don't really sell the war, but they show it. So, lie back. Let's flip through time softly. The first photo isn't what you'd expect. It's not Normandy, not Berlin. It's California, 1942, the edge of America before the storm truly broke. A group of new recruits stand in loose formation, half in uniform, half in confusion. One has a towel over his shoulder, another a cigarette dangling with the kind of defiance only a teenager can pull off. The one in the middle, the camera liked him the most. His name was Frank Hughes, 19 years old, from a small town in Iowa where the tallest building was the water tower. He's staring into the lens like he knows it's a mirror. Not of vanity, but of consequence. And somehow he looks older, like someone who's already seen the ending. Frank didn't die in the war, which is good and slightly disappointing, narratively speaking. He came home, ran a gas station, lived to 87. But in that photo, captured in black and white sunlight, he already looks like a ghost who hasn't realized he's still alive. Let's drift forward a little. Another photo. This one's from London, 1941. The caption reads simply, "Milk delivery." Because, yes, apparently even under falling bombs, people still needed milk. The man in the photo is walking through rubble with two glass bottles clinking gently in his hand. He's wearing a cap and that determined British face that says, "If I stop for 1 second, I'll fall apart, so I won't." Behind him, there's half a building, literally half, as if someone took a giant bite out of it. And yet, the street looks calm. The light hits the dust just right, turning destruction into something almost cinematic. It's a picture that quietly whispers, life doesn't stop for war. It just gets a bit noisier.
Now, let's float over to the Pacific, 1944. The humidity sticks to the air even through the photograph. There's a U.S. Marine sitting by a palm tree, helmet off, shirt open, writing something in a notebook. Probably a letter home. Maybe to someone named Mary or Betty or whoever wrote back. We'll never know, of course. But you can almost read the exhaustion in his body. The way his shoulders slouch, the cigarette forgotten between two fingers. It's not the exhaustion of fighting. It's the exhaustion of waiting to fight again. His friend, half out of frame, is napping, mouth open, helmet tilted like a makeshift shade. The two of them look like kids who fell asleep at summer camp, except there's an M1 rifle leaning against a tree beside them. The caption on the back of the photo says, "Resting near Peleliu." That's it. Resting. As if rest was a normal word in a place like that. Let's come back to Europe now, to France after the landings. Another photo. It's not soldiers, not generals. It's a woman. Middle-aged, sharp features, hair tied back. She's standing in front of her bakery, or what's left of it. Half the windows are gone, but she's sweeping the doorway anyway. The photographer didn't even write her name. She's just French civilian, 1944. But she looks straight into the lens with this mix of anger and disbelief, like she's thinking, "Are you really taking pictures right now?" You can feel the question hanging in the air, Because photography is strange that way. It freezes suffering and then politely asks us to stare at it. This photo never went viral, obviously. Wrong era, wrong kind of tragedy. But somehow, she's still there, still sweeping, every time we open the archive.
Now, here's one that's both beautiful and unsettling. It's from Hawaii, December 8th, 1941, the morning after Pearl Harbor. The smoke's still curling from the water, but the photo shows none of that. Instead, it's a group of sailors lined up for breakfast. Their plates are metal, the kind that clink when you set them down. They're standing in line, quiet, no one talking. And you realize someone thought this moment mattered enough to photograph. Not the chaos, but the stillness after it. There's something eerily human about that. The world just changed forever, and someone's asking, eggs or oatmeal? Let's drift again. This time to Berlin, 1945. You can almost smell the dust through the grain of the image. It's a photo taken by a Soviet soldier. There's no caption. A piano stands in the middle of a bombed-out room. The keys are broken, half missing, but someone's sitting there playing it, or pretending to. He's in uniform, muddy boots, cigarette in his mouth. You can almost hear nothing. He's not smiling. He's not sad either. He's just existing. And that's kind of the secret thread through all these unseen photos. They show existence, not heroism. The people who weren't trying to be remembered, but got remembered anyway, simply because someone pressed a shutter. In the next part, we'll wander deeper into the archives, where generals are blurry in the background and unknown faces fill the frame instead. We'll meet nurses, translators, children, cooks, prisoners, and people who thought the war would last forever. Spoiler, for some of them, it did. So, take another deep breath. Let the hum of the refrigerator be your background music. And when you're ready, we'll open the next dusty album together.
Hey again. Still here? Good. If you're half awake, perfect. That's the best state for this kind of history. Tonight, we're not storming beaches. We're standing in kitchens, factories, train stations, all the places where the war hummed quietly in the background like an old refrigerator. The next photo I found is from Detroit, 1943. A factory floor, loud in real life but silent on film. Rows of women in bandanas and overalls, hands deep in machinery. The caption says riveters, but you can see it in their faces. They're not thinking about rivets. They're thinking about lunch breaks, about ration cards, about someone overseas. The woman closest to the lens has a small smile. Not the propaganda kind, more like, someone's taking my picture, might as well look alive. Her name's lost, but that look, proud and exhausted, somehow feels familiar even now. Let's float to Brooklyn, same year. A street corner near a bakery. Kids playing war with wooden rifles and cardboard helmets. One of them salutes the camera, deadly serious. He's maybe 7. Behind him, an old man sits on the stoop reading a newspaper. The headline screams something about Sicily, but the man's eyes don't move. Maybe he's just reading the same line over and over, waiting for a son's name that isn't printed there. It's a small, unimportant photo. Except it's everything. It's how wars actually look when no one's winning or losing yet. Next, a photograph taken in Kansas, 1942. A church hall turned into a dance floor. There's bunting, a cheap band,
and soldiers spinning local girls in floral dresses. Everyone's smiling too hard, like joy is a patriotic duty. One soldier in the corner isn't dancing. He's staring at the ceiling fan. You can tell his mind's already somewhere across the ocean. That fan keeps turning anyway, slow, relentless, like time refusing to stop for anyone's nerves.
Now we cross the ocean again. Italy, 1944. A group of Allied nurses sit on stone steps outside a field hospital. They're drinking tea out of tin cups, sleeves rolled up. Behind them, stretchers lined like punctuation marks to a sentence no one wants to read. One nurse, maybe 20, has freckles and a stubborn grin. She's trying to feed a stray kitten with a spoon. Someone thought it was worth photographing. And thank God they did, because that tiny moment of absurd tenderness in the middle of chaos might be the truest record of the war. Let's fade gently into another forgotten scene. Washington, D.C., 1945, Victory Day. Crowds everywhere, flags waving like they've been waiting years to move. But our photo isn't Times Square. It's a small park bench. A woman sits alone, holding her hat in her lap. Everyone else is shouting. She isn't. There's mascara on her cheek, a smile that can't quite find its footing. The back of the photo says, Widow, VJ Day. It's a reminder that victory looks different depending on who's keeping score. And then there's Los Angeles, 1942. An internment camp for Japanese Americans. Barbed wire, wooden barracks, mountains in the distance pretending not to see. A family stands together for a portrait. The father's in a suit, the mother in her Sunday dress. They look proud, painfully proud, like people determined not to vanish from their own photograph. The youngest boy holds a baseball glove. You can tell it's new, probably a gift before they were relocated. There's something unbearably American about that. To lose everything, but still hold on to a game. The photo was filed under civic control, as if control were ever the right word for what was happening. Let's wander further west to Oregon, where a woman named Martha O'Neill ran a diner near an airbase. There's a picture of her behind the counter, coffee pot mid-pour, smile halfway between welcome and exhaustion. Behind her, a handwritten sign, sugar, 1 spoon per cup, ration rules. You can almost smell the burnt toast. You can hear the jukebox that doesn't play because someone forgot to order new records. History loves generals and treaties, but it's really built on people like Martha, measuring sweetness carefully so the rest of the world doesn't run out.
And now, something softer. Paris, late 1945. The war is technically over, but the city still looks like it's holding its breath. A boy sells flowers on a bridge. The petals are wilted, but he smiles anyway. Across from him, a U.S. soldier buys a bunch, tucks them into his jacket pocket. The photographer catches that exact moment. Two people trying to act normal in a world that isn't. No one looks heroic, just human, which, honestly, is rarer than you'd think. Let's close tonight's reel with one more frame. It's New York, winter of 1946. Snow, taxis, neon. A man in uniform walking down Fifth Avenue alone. Everyone else has moved on. Christmas lights, laughter, the illusion of peacetime. But his shadow stretches longer than the others. He's carrying a duffel bag that looks heavier than it should. The caption reads, Homecoming. Simple word, complicated reality. That's the strange thing about these unseen photos. They don't shout. They whisper. They hum softly about normal people doing small things while the world burned and rebuilt itself around them. They remind us that history isn't always the loud parts. Sometimes it's just the sound of a coffee cup on a diner counter, or the silence after the band stopped playing. All right, that's enough wandering for tonight. Close your eyes. Let the noise of the past fade into the hum of your room. And if you start to drift off before the next photo, that's fine. The war will wait. It always does.
Hey again. If you're still here, thanks for staying awake, or not. Either way, you're doing fine. The war's over now. But, as always, over is just a word. The guns stop, the silence starts. And in that silence, the cameras kept rolling. The first photo in this part is from Berlin, 1945. You've probably seen the famous ones, the flags, the rubble, the soldiers shaking hands. This one's quieter. It shows two boys, maybe 10 or 11, sitting on a pile of bricks that used to be an apartment building. They're barefoot. One has a toy tank made out of scrap metal, the other's eating a piece of bread like it's the last one in the world. Someone wrote on the back, "Children playing in ruins." But you can tell they're not playing. They're just pretending not to notice the silence. The boy with the bread looks straight at the camera. Not smiling, not afraid, just waiting. That's what post-war Europe mostly was. Waiting. Let's drift east a bit. Poland, 1946. A refugee camp near Krakow. The tents are uneven, the mud almost sculptural. A woman stands in front of one, holding a baby wrapped in a blanket that used to be a curtain. She's staring off to the side, maybe at someone approaching, or maybe she's just watching for something to return that never will. There's a man behind her hammering together a makeshift cot. You can see the bones of exhaustion in his arms. He's rebuilding something. Maybe a bed, maybe a sense of control. The whole photo looks gray, even though it's black and white. It's the kind of gray you can feel. Next, we travel to Tokyo, 1946. A city that looks both ancient and brand new, all at once. The camera catches a street vendor with a pushcart. He's selling roasted chestnuts. Around him, kids in patched clothes are laughing, not because they have much to laugh about, but because children have an amazing ability to find reasons anyway. There's a man in the background wearing an American Army jacket that's clearly too big for him. Maybe he traded something for it. Maybe it was just what he could find. History leaves these questions open, like half-written postcards.
Now we glide across the ocean again to San Francisco, 1945. There's a pier, sunlight, and a group of nurses waving at a ship full of returning soldiers. You can almost hear the shouts and horns even through the stillness of the photo. But if you look closely, behind all that joy, one nurse is crying. Her face half hidden, but visible enough to remind you, endings aren't always relief. Sometimes they're just empty spaces where noise used to be. The ship in the photo was called the General M.C. Meigs. It carried 3,000 men home. The photographer's name was Mary Stearns, one of the few women allowed to document military life back then. She never took dramatic pictures. She preferred the quiet ones, like this. People reaching out toward each other, but still 100 feet apart. Let's pause for a moment in London, 1946. A street cleaner in a top hat, because why not, sweeps debris off Westminster Bridge. He's whistling, or at least it looks like he might be. A double-decker bus goes by, and on its side is a poster that reads, "Keep smiling. The future is ours." which honestly sounds like something written by someone who hasn't slept in 7 years. The man with the broom looks up just long enough to notice the photographer. He doesn't stop sweeping, he doesn't wave, he just keeps going, which feels like the most British thing ever. From London to Vienna, 1947. A small cafe reopening for the first time since the war. 2 tables, 3 chairs, 1 broken window. There's a waiter wearing a jacket that's definitely seen better days, serving coffee and mismatched cups. And somehow everyone looks happy, or maybe just relieved to be pretending to be happy again. In the corner of the frame, there's a couple holding hands. She's in a coat 2 sizes too big. He's still in uniform. The caption just says, peace. A simple word for something the world was still figuring out how to feel.
The next photo moves us to New York, 1947. A parade, ticker tape falling like confetti snow. Crowds lining the streets, cheering. And right there in the middle, a veteran in a wheelchair with a huge grin. His wife leans down to kiss him, and for that split second, the camera catches what looks like genuine joy, the kind that sneaks past grief. What the photo doesn't show is everything around it. The noise, the cigarette smoke, the sudden quiet afterward. History only ever gives us the frame. We fill in the rest. Let's visit Moscow, 1947. A propaganda photo that didn't quite make the cut. It shows soldiers painting over war slogans on a factory wall. The new slogan reads, "Rebuild." One man on the ladder looks like he's about to fall asleep standing up. His comrade holds the paint bucket and stares off into nothing. The photo's out of focus, which feels right. The world was out of focus too. And then there's Paris. Again, 1947. The lights are coming back on. Literally. Electricity restored. Theaters reopening. Cafes filling. One image shows a seamstress sewing a wedding dress in a dim little shop. The bride-to-be stands on a wooden box, smiling shyly, the hem barely reaching her ankles. Outside, the streets full of rubble. Inside, lace and laughter. It's almost funny. After 5 years of destruction, humans immediately go back to making things delicate again. Now, one last image before we fade out tonight. Washington, D.C., 1948. The camera is high up, maybe on a government building. Below, people walk, businessmen, soldiers, mothers with strollers. Everything looks normal, almost too normal. But in one corner of the frame, a veteran in a long coat stands staring at the Capitol dome. You can't see his face clearly, but you can sense the weight in his stance, like he's trying to decide whether all of it, everything that happened, actually meant something. The photo is titled "Democracy Resumes," which sounds optimistic and a little defensive. And that's how the war really ended. Not with a single triumphant photograph, but with millions of tiny ones. People sweeping, rebuilding, sitting, staring, loving again. Quiet things. The unseen photos remind us that history isn't a headline. It's a whisper, a long exhale after too many years of holding your breath. So for now, let's do what the world finally did in 1948. Exhale. Let the noise fade out. The streets are quiet again. And somewhere in the background, someone's camera clicks one last time.